Hello, everyone. You have joined on this very special webinar on the Quint. And basically, we are doing this special webinar because the last phase of polling in most states, except West Bengal, just got over yesterday. And some of our reporters have now finally found the time to come for this webinar. They are away from the field. And we have with us Ishadrita Lahiri, who is joining us from the lovely climate of Darjeeling. It's nice and very chilling out there. I'm sitting here in Noida. It's pretty warm here. Smitha is in the hot and humid Chennai, and I have my friend Debayan who is joining us from Kolkata. And you must have seen me. I have been reporting for almost a month from Assam. So for me, Smitha and Debayan, the polling for now is over, so we can take it easy. Not Debayan, sorry. Debayan still has to do a lot of work. The elections are still on. It's going to go on till the end of April in Kolkata. So why we are doing this webinar today? We are doing this webinar today because we really want to give you a sense into what exactly goes into election coverage. You know, when Quint goes and does this election coverage, it's not the normal run out of the mill stuff that we'll see on any television channel. You know, our election coverage is different. Our election coverage is about you, the voters. It's about the issues. And as I keep saying, it's not about chasing netas, though we have chased few netas, but we have to do that also, but it's not about chasing netas. So, you know, before we go any further, you know, I would request one of my colleagues to just play a small video. It's not a very long video. It's about a minute long video, minute and a half long video to give you a sense of what exactly we have been doing in this election season. So can you please play the election promo?
Let's start by un-tiffining his name, MK's talent.
Jobs, development, CAA. অসমৰ মানুহে কোন ইস্যুলৈ ভোট কৰিব
We are at the Verulia Bazaar in Nandigram where Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee was allegedly attacked
at Kolkata's iconic Indian coffee house.
We are on our way to Lakhimpur.
Here on a campaign trail with DMK MP Kanimori.
Once it rains, you cannot travel in these roads. It is so hard.
और सरकार तरफ से कोई बीमारी इलाज कोई कुछ भी नहीं मिलता है।
दीदी का फोन आया तो फिर मेरा डिसीजन प्रीटी क्लियर था।
जब देखा शुभेंदु दा आया, मेरा हौसला बढ़ गया।
We have to fight against that two devil forces.
In 2016, when Jayalalitha died, she left behind a political vacuum.
At the center of this caste vote bank politics is the Mathura community.
So there you saw it, you know, that was a snippet of our election coverage, that what we have been doing for the past few weeks, you know, and you saw that there were some big leaders that we interviewed, but you also saw that we went to the tribal belts of West Bengal. I was in a tea garden in Assam, and Debayan went to the coffee house in Kolkata. So we had a variety of content pieces to provide to you. So I'll first, you know, would like to go to Ishadrita. Ishadrita, you are in Darjeeling. How is the weather there?
It's amazing. After almost 3 weeks of the terrible heat in the rest of the state, I in fact almost forgot that it's going to be cold here, so I didn't get any jackets or sweaters. When I landed here yesterday, I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. But yeah, it's great.
Let's get a reality check. You are gonna be in Darjeeling for about a week or so, but before that, you were in Purulia, and I think Birbhum also you went.
I was in Birbhum, Bankura, Purulia,
and Nandigram, Nandigram, and all those areas, you know, in Nandigram we saw the polls just happened, and it was really a violent day of polling in Nandigram. But while you were reporting in Nandigram and Purulia, you know, how difficult, I'm not going to ask you a question about what is the political, you know, scenario you saw, what is the mood of the voters, but I'll ask you, how difficult was it reporting from those areas? You know, did it take a lot of convincing for you to convince the voters to finally open up and speak to you?
Yeah, you know, so the most difficult thing, at least for me, when we are reporting from the ground, is that, you know, unlike all these legacy media houses, we don't have a team of 10 people that we are traveling with. You know, we don't have a vast network of local journalists or stringers that we're interacting with every day. So I travel alone. I'm, you know, the one thing is that you're an akele larki in these villages, and it is a little difficult for the villagers to kind of to trust you in the first place, you know, because you're not coming with the whole tamjham that TV comes with. You're not coming with an OB van. You're not coming with a camera person. You're not coming with all of that. So it gets difficult for people to first trust you and actually believe that you're a journalist who is just here to hear their problems. Secondly, which I found something which was very striking for me, because we are reporting during the pandemic. In rural Bengal, what I saw, no one is wearing masks. Corona really is not a top of mind thing for them at all. So when I went to some villages in Purulia wearing my mask, people actually asked me, why are you wearing this mask? Do you have coronavirus? You know, in other places, people would not want to talk to you till you take your mask off. So these are some issues that you have to face. The other thing is with women, it is very difficult to get them to talk on camera, you know, because there are a variety of factors. They don't want their face to be coming on camera. Other times they say, you know, we need to take permission from our husband or something. But it is something that requires a lot of convincing from you also as a reporter to come and tell them that we are here to just listen to you. We are not here with any vested political interests. And it really is a very time consuming process which requires a lot of patience. And it is something that you have to do day after day after day. Sometimes you go to one village, you spend 2 hours, maybe nobody talks to you. But you have to keep persevering. You have to find it in you to go to that next village, to again make that effort to talk to people, to again make that effort to connect with people. And as you have seen in our reports, it does, it does bear fruit. And it is a long process, but we do manage somehow.
So I'll now go across to Smitha in Chennai. You know, Smitha, unfortunately, you are not in a lovely weather that Ishadrita is right now, but the good thing is that your election for now, you can take it easy for a few days, you know, till the counting happens. So Smitha, what were your main challenges in this coverage? You know, one of your first stories was when you chased Kanimozi with her on the campaign trail. We'll come to that. We'll talk about that story. But give us how easy or difficult things have been in Tamil Nadu for a digital journalist, and how difficult has it been with you to compete with the legacy media? Do the leaders give you the time or not? Yeah.
Yeah, Tridip, it has been quite a challenge this time covering elections in Tamil Nadu, especially because the elections this time is a little different. Earlier, we had just two big leaders. So the mood of the people was also very predictable. And Tamil Nadu is, earlier was, the young population was not a very politically aware crowd. And they could easily swing by they could be easily influenced by the generational preference. But this time, there has been so much awareness. People want to understand more. So there are so many opinions coming from everywhere. And it was very difficult to understand the mood of a place. So you go to like a textile hub, say Tirupur in Tamil Nadu. Usually while speaking to the elderly generation, the parties and the tatas and the kids, you can get a sense of what it is. But this time it's just the same. A family has 5 different opinions and they don't even mind choosing parties which have hardly any presence. So it was quite interesting to see that. And also the biggest challenge, like Ishadrita said, is first of all, when we walk to a place holding one selfie stick and an iPhone only, some people don't take you seriously, but then it works in your favor because there's no big camera or a crew to intimidate them. So in seconds, they forget that you even came with a camera. They sit and chat with you. They end up giving you the best food items. I've had hands down the best meal at every single day, because it's either given by the people you're interviewing, and these are regular people. So while there is a challenge, there is a lot of hesitation, and then there is a pandemic. Now you're wearing a mask also, so people can't see. Like she had said, there were many people who would try so many ways so that you just take off that mask, because they just can't get why you have to wear a mask. Someone said majority wins. In this political crowd, the majority of us are not wearing one. So shouldn't you also take it off and show us what you look like? So they'd offer something to drink, something to eat.
Smitha, I don't know whether you actually took off the mask, because we didn't see anything on camera. But when you came back from the reporting and during the last phase, unfortunately, you tested positive for COVID. So
no, I did follow my precautions at every leg.
After you got infected, was it serious, or you had mild symptoms, and how concerned were you, your family, and everyone else?
I'm thanking my stars that it was mild symptoms. The thing is, I found out I got COVID while I was interviewing a very senior leader here, and I was on a campaign trail. When I found out the reason why I was sick the last 2 days was because I had COVID. And then the very next day I had to get tested, and I'm wondering how many people I would have come in contact with in the big rally, in spite of taking a lot of precautions. And let me remind you, most of these rallies are men. So it's just literally you're the only woman walking around there. But the kind of love and affection that you get from people, somehow you can say Anna, meaning like brother, bhaiya. Someone will listen to you and they'll make space, they'll make sure that you're safe, something of that sort. So yes, after I tested positive for COVID, I was concerned, very honestly, more than my health. I was really bummed that I couldn't do 7 other interviews that I had lined up, and they're all of very senior political leaders, and they were very interesting campaign trail. So that was a huge bummer. And but then I somehow managed to find a space to stay so that I can shoot, and then we turned the whole turnaround. And I think Quint gives an amazing platform to try out interesting storytelling formats. And if I could just experiment with so many of them, and I don't think many people have even realized that I got COVID and I was missing from the scene. We
have a lot of audience members who have already joined us. I would like to tell them, so you just heard from Smitha, the extent to which we normally go to bring these stories to you. She eventually ended up with COVID, so I think she really needs a round of applause. And she of course got a lot of appreciation from us, and it's for the first time that we are putting it out in public that Smitha eventually tested positive because of all the reporting she did. So your encouragement, your support, a little bit of financial assistance that you give us, this gives us the hope that yes, we can step out, we can do more such stories. So we request all of you to please follow. There's a link in our chat box where you can go. If you click this link, it will take you to another window which will tell you how exactly you can contribute to support our journalism. And if you have any other questions, you can please type in the Q&A box. We'll try to answer them. And but we have to tell you that it will be very nice, and on your part, if you ask us questions about our reporting process, because this is not a webinar where we are trying to do a political analysis or something. We are trying to give you a sneak peek into what exactly goes into our coverage. Since we are talking about Smitha, I would request one of our colleagues to play a short snippet of a video that she did with the DMK leader Kanimozi, and you will see the kind of crowds she was mingling with. It was so crowded, it was chaotic. And when you come from a reporting stint like that, I'm very surprised that it took almost a month before she tested positive, because when you saw that video, you thought the likelihood of you testing positive is very high, So I would request my colleague Vidhu to play this video for us.
தியாகி குமரனின் ஆழ்ந்த இந்த மண்ணில் தந்தை பெரியாரும் பேரறிஞர் பிறந்த
உலகை அண்ணாவும் சந்தித்த மண்ணில் இப்போது களப்பறை மேற்கொள்கிறார் கலைஞரின் முதல்வி. கலைஞரின் முதல்வி மகளிருடைய செயலாளர்.
I'm here on a campaign trail with DMK MP Kanimuri, and the crowd you see behind me there, well, this was not even part of the schedule. DMK MP Kanimuri has been taking the effort to reach out to groups which are not traditional DMK vote banks. Every now and then you can see her walk out of the bus, meet a group of women standing on the side of the road, listen to their grievances, write down a petition.
Okay, Smitha, we just saw you with a mask, so I'm pretty sure you didn't get infected during that story. At least you had your mask on.
Again, I did have my mask on, and I religiously followed it through the entire time.
Yeah.
It was, but on that note, I'd like to tell how it was covering a campaign trail such as this. Kanimuri and another leader I followed was Tiruma Valvan of the Viduthalai Sirthagal Katchi, another very prominent leader who's known as the assertive face of Dalit politics here. Again, massive crowds, and there are a lot of organic crowds as well. One more thing about Tamil Nadu is we like everything to be huge, whether if it's our massive cutouts or our first day first shows, our politics, our posters. We have so much grandeur in our state with attending to every. No wonder our movie stars have turned into politicians here. It's a very normal. And that's how every single campaign trail is. And when I say at every leg, there'd be people attending to everyone by giving them food, by giving them snacks, sharing political thoughts. And that's great because at every leg of this, you'll also develop an understanding of how the people are. And these are people from different communities. So how they are perceiving someone like this who's coming in. And so many times it's amusing to see how someone welcoming DMK Kanimuri is actually a very hardcore AIDMK supporter, and there's no way she's going to support for DMK. But that shows how people this time in Tamil Nadu are being more forthcoming about acknowledging certain leaders for their good work. Say Kamal Hassan's team, there's a lot of approval for the actor, but not so much for the party by itself.
Okay.
So it was very nice understanding all this through the trails while always wearing a mask. Not really social distancing though.
Okay. I'll take a question from Mr. Neeraj Kumar, and I would like Debayan to answer this question if possible. How did you reporters convince the locals? What are the hardships that all of you faced, just to make them believe that you are a reporter? Because you just went ahead with a mobile phone in your hand and a microphone. Debayan, would you like to answer that? How difficult was it for you to convince the locals to speak to you?
I mean, to be very honest, I didn't find it very difficult to convince the locals to talk. I mean, for the most part, for one, it's election season, so most of the people are more or less ready to talk, and they, especially when you ask them about their grievances, they are ready to talk. And for the most part, one of the things that I would repeatedly tell people that if you don't talk to us, if you don't tell us your problems, how do we put it forward to the world? Because we are your channel from we are the ones who take your problems and put it out to the world for everybody to see, and that is how we can sort of bring about some sort of change. That is the ideally the noble cause that why we work for. And that I think that is one of the things that had worked for me when I was talking to people. And other than that, so one of the things I would always do, because I know I'm how Ishadrita said that we are not coming with an OB van and those huge mics and huge camera setups to look like reporters. We mostly look like normal people. So I also tried to act that part of just being a normal people. I'm look, I'm not here just as a reporter, but I'm also here to as somebody who cares about your problems. I want to take your problems. I want to put it out to the world and see if justice can be done. And try.
I have an observation because here, I normally tend to report from the northeast of India, and Assam is a state from where I have reported quite a lot. One thing that I have over the years I have observed is that, whenever there's an election or NRC or CA, you see reporters who are like sort of paradrop from Delhi. They suddenly land there, when during an election or when the CA is going on, they do Google and pick up stuff from newspapers, and then they go and then they try to do a story. Problem is, most of them, they don't even know how to speak Assamese or the local language. When you go and try to speak, in a state like Assam, you go and approach people and try to speak in Hindi or English, people are not going to open up. You have to come down to their level. They have to be convinced that you are also one of them who's just doing a job. You connect to them in their local language. In this case, it's Assamese. For Ishadrita, it will be Bengali, and for Smitha, it will be Tamil. So a familiarity with language, culture, the background of a state, the historical background and the political background of a state is very, very important when you are reporting on the field, because when I went and I did a story with the tea garden workers, I already knew from so many years what their problems are. I didn't have to Google up the information, see a few videos, then land up there and do the story. And when you go with that kind of information and understanding of local issues, then the stories also come out much more honest. They are much more in depth. It's not there's any other story you go and do it just for the fact that tea garden issue, their wages is an issue and we have to do a story. It's not just because of that the story comes out like that. It comes out well because you know this story so well, you know these people so well, you know their background so well. I've spoken to Debayan and Ishadrita. You came up with a very interesting concept during these elections, which is Ki Bolche Bangla. I would like to talk a little bit about Ki Bolche Bangla, but everyone who is part of this webinar, I would like all of you to just see this link which is in the chat box, and it is a link which says become a Quint member. I would request all of you to support our journalism, support our reportage. With your funds, with your help, we can do more such stories. This is just the elections that you see for, but beyond elections also we do lot of stuff. So with your support, we'll be able to step out, go onto the field and bring out these stories which the legacy media would never tell. So Ishadrita, I'll come back quickly to you. And will you tell us what was your thought and idea behind Ki Bolche Bangla, and how easy or difficult it has been, and what has been the kind of response that you have been getting?
Tridip, the thought behind Ki Bolche Bangla came from what you just pointed out, that especially in West Bengal this election season, it has become like this journalist tourism hub, like everyone from Delhi and Bombay and everyone, all the big anchors from all the big channels, even channels you've never heard of, everyone is in Calcutta, So I think the journalist population of Calcutta has increased by 3 times in the last 2 months, So what I noticed, especially in these legacy media houses, is most of their time was spent chasing leaders. And second, when they did come to speak to the people, they were speaking to the people to make them say what they wanted them to say. It was not going to the people and asking them, what is your problem? It was, I think this is your problem, so why don't you confirm that for me? And my idea of starting Ki Bolche Bangla was just one, which is that I wanted to turn the camera away from the politicians and turn the camera away from the netas and focus on the people. Now, as I just said, that following that format is a little difficult because it means that you have to really go into the interiors of this area. You can't just line up the politician and then follow them on the campaign trail or whatever. You have to go to different villages. Sometimes people talk to you, sometimes people don't talk to you. You have to find out what kind of case studies you can get in what kind of villages. It is then convincing these normal people to talk. But one thing I noticed is, when you approach people on the ground, right, and when you tell them that I don't want to know who you're voting for, I am not interested in knowing who you're voting for, I just want to know every day, what is the problem that you're facing? What is it that you want the next government to fix? What is it that you want your politicians to be talking about? And I feel that every time I've gone and I've told these people that I don't care about who you vote for, they have become even more open to me, and they start telling you your problems. And then you realize that especially in the context of Bengal, right? Because the politics of it is so high pitched. You know, every day Mamata Banerjee is saying something, then the BJP is saying something, then someone is responding to that. And this, I mean, there's so much talk about the politics and the netas that I felt that it is important that at least once in 5 years, you know, politicians come to their constituencies once in 5 years. But I think we should take this opportunity to kind of present to them that these are the problems that people every day are facing. These are the problems they want addressed. They don't want to talk about communal polarization. They don't want to talk about, this
Yeah.
other EVM scandal or
Yeah.
whatever. They want to
Yeah.
talk about their issues. And I feel that as a journalist, it is my job that at least during the elections, if the politicians are not interested in listening to them, it is my job to take those issues and present it to the politicians. So
Yeah.
that was the idea behind Ki Bolche
Yeah.
Bangla.
So I think, yeah, so you gave us a very deep and interesting insight into the thought process behind Ki Bolche Bangla. So I'd request my colleague to just play a quick snippet of Ki Bolche Bangla to give you a sense of what exactly that concept and that show, that series looks like. Yeah. Can we have that video, please?
এখানে এমনও শুনেছি যে গ্রামে নাকি মানে ওখানে বলেছে আমাদের যে আমরা প্যাড ইউজ করাচ্ছি, প্যাড ইউজ করলে মেয়েরা মরে যায়।
এখানে কত কত দূর আপনার গ্রাম থেকে যেখানে জল আনতে যান?
5 কিলোমিটার।
আচ্ছা, আর প্রত্যেকদিন কতবার আসেন আপনি জল আনতে?
5 বার।
4বার হয়ে যায়। তো প্রত্যেকদিন 5 কিলোমিটার আসেন, আবার 5 কিলোমিটার যান, মানে 10 কিলোমিটার, আর সেটা আবার 3 বার আসেন।
3বার 4বার।
Hello and welcome to this episode of Ki Bolche Bangla, the Quint special series on the West Bengal elections 2021. Today we are in Purulia, a district which has about 20% scheduled caste population and about 19% scheduled tribe population.
So that was Ki Bolche Bangla. I will take one question from one of our viewers here. Yeah. So Vikas John is asking that what are the major limitations you guys have as a journalist to bring real issues to your stories, or not just reporting stories? And there's another question that was about breaking the language barrier. So I will take the question about the language barrier. It's very interesting. So I was in Majuli, and while I was reporting there was this another crew that came here. It was from a Hindi channel in Delhi. They are based out of Noida, here in Noida. So this guy comes to me, this other reporter, and he comes to me and asks me, I've been going around to do this story on CA and the elections, but problem is I haven't been able to find a single person who speaks in Hindi. So he was like, can you help me to find few people who can speak in Hindi and I can do this story? So, that's the kind of limitations you face. They didn't happen with me. So you know that how difficult this was for this guy, because he couldn't find a guy who speaks in Hindi, and until and unless he found a guy who speaks in Hindi, he wouldn't understand what the real issues are. Maybe I'm not questioning his integrity. Maybe he wanted to bring out a real story, but because of the language barrier, he just couldn't do that story. So that's how it works on the field. And I will ask Debayan now. He did a very interesting story, because in West Bengal this year it's sort of a star-studded elections. The lines have been blurred between politicians and film stars. You have got Mithun Chakravarti coming and saying he's a cobra, and then I have in fact lost track of how many actors are there in these elections. Tamil Nadu only has Kamal Hassan, I believe, but Bengal has a huge multi-starrer lineup. So Debayan,
we have lost track of who's an actor and who's a politician anymore. Like
I have completely lost track. But Debayan, you were with the TMC candidate Shayani Ghosh, and you went on a campaign trail with her. Tell us, how difficult was it first to convince her to come on camera, and then when you went on that campaign trail, how much of it was acting and how much if it was real Shayani Ghosh? Because being an actor, it's really difficult to make out what, whether when they're saying something they actually mean it, or they're just play acting. How was that experience, Debayan?
I think convincing her for an interview or a campaign trail wasn't very difficult. Like, for the most part, she was readily interested in it. But when I pitched the fact that, I want to actually follow you around for the whole day, she was slightly taken aback because, like, again, she's not very used to, the whole thing. And she also, like, even when I met her on that day, she was also a little confused about, how am I going to go about it, given that, she was campaigning in a village where the roads are very narrow, and and there are a lot of people following her, and she obviously has her own private security detail. So, and that is something that was one of the biggest challenges that even I had while I was covering, because the roads are very narrow. Like, even a car can't pass through it. Like, they are so narrow, and out there it's like a good, like, 75 to 100 people following her, and then there's a security detail, and in the middle of that I am just one person who's running around, like, trying to, like, dodge and dribble between the crowds, and somehow make my way in, like, inside her security detail to talk to her. And like, the one of the biggest challenges, like, framing my shot, keeping my wits about me, and also conducting an interview, all three things, doing one person doing it, becomes a mammoth task.
You guys
So, like,
had your
sometimes, like, I would try.
masks on, Debayan. I don't remember even that video now very clearly. Both of you had your
Sir,
masks
I
or?
had my mask on. I had my mask on at all times because I was extremely paranoid. It's like there are 100, 150 people. Not a single person is wearing a mask. Like, I actually counted in the 3 campaign trails I've been on. I actually counted the number of people wearing masks, and it turned out to be just one, and that is me. Unfortunately, like, Shani was still wearing a mask once in a while, but then she would take it off every time she had to answer a question. So I'm like, that kind of defeats the purpose, but okay. But yeah, so that
you
was.
spent the whole day with her?
I spent a whole day with her. Like, I reached Asansol around 8 in the morning, and I was there till 6 in the evening.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
okay. Yeah, Debayan, please continue.
So, like, I think, like, to coming to the second part of your question about how much of it was acting, how much of it was true, and I would always say, like, this is one of the things that I appropriately still couldn't capture on camera, is the fact that, she was campaigning on foot from 9 in the morning to 8 in the evening, on foot, without any. The only time she took a break was when she was having lunch, and that was for exactly half an hour. Other than that, all the time I followed her. She did not sit in the car or nothing. She was walking on foot, and, like, going from door to door, and, like, like, at no point did I see her feel tired or, like, be like, okay, you know what, I'm done with this or something. She always had a smile plastered to her face.
So you were also following her through the day. So clearly
I was also following her.
You also put in a lot of effort to bring that story out, and this was not a very conventional campaign trail interview. It was a lot of fun. You spoke politics, you spoke cinema, so there was good fun. I want to tell my viewers, the audience member who are watching, so you see, this is the kind of effort that goes into bringing a story. At the end of the day, what you see is a 5 to 8 minute long interview. But when you just heard Deba, and then you realize that it's all for almost 12 hours, 12 to 13 hours, he was with Shayani Ghosh, and amidst crowd and a lot of dust and grime and heat. So that's why we are asking you to stand with us. That's why we are asking you to become a member of Quint, to support us. When we see that we have you guys with us, we feel encouraged that maybe whatever we are doing, it's just right, and there is a viewer there are people there who are supporting us. So become a member of the Quint, make whatever donation is it's possible on your part, and those funds will be used in our reporting process. Those funds will be used to bring out stories which you will never see on a TV channel. So help us, come out, support us, become a member, and contribute to our journalism. Smitha, I want to ask you something. Right now we are talking a lot about the reporting process, but after the reporting is done, there's also a part where when you come back to the hotel, and from there, instead of, you don't even have the time to take rest. You come back, you sit down, and you are editing the story, you are sending the story to your main office in Noida or Bombay, and connectivity becomes an issue, footage doesn't get transferred, so how frustrating is that process, and how difficult is that process?
Oh God, it's very, first of all, to start with, before we go out for reporting, we actually plan out every single leg of our story. We draw out such a detailed storyboard, and we have this vision that this is exactly how it's going to go. And these are stories I'm saying where we have a fair idea of who our case study is, who I'm going to be speaking to, which neta, and what are the questions I'm going to ask. We do all of that, and then when we go to the ground to shoot, it so happens that none of those things actually end up happening. So when we come back home, we have to sit and restructure the entire thing. And most importantly, the moment we come back to the rooms, we have to sit and charge every single device that we've used to shoot. And so we have to patiently wait for that to happen before you transfer, you do the edit. Probably the only thing we all make sure, which I'm sure the other reporters would chime in, is hope and pray that the hotel has a decent Wi-Fi connectivity and a good bed to pass out on. Because at the end of the day, you have to sanitize every piece of your equipment, and then you go through the entire edit. You feel totally satisfied with yourself by, say, 12 in the night, when you finished your edit and you have to be up in 4 hours, only to realize that the power fails or the internet goes off. And then I remember there was once I went out looking for an internet center, and last time I went out looking for the internet center was when the flood struck and there was no network connectivity. And during the pandemic, in many of these districts, all these places were clearly shut down. So we had to go from one place to another to find the LAN cable just to send a small snippet of a video. Again, I mean, we could wait for us to come back and restructure and put it out, but then there is an urgency in this situation because we're talking about elections, and every single day dramas unfolding, there's so much happening. So, and at the end of the day, when your story comes out, and sometimes it makes a difference, as in it's a people's story, people are looking at it, people are understanding the present situation, then I think that frustration is just forgotten until the next story comes up again. Again, there's a power cut. Again, you can't go out to do anything, especially now during COVID. There are so many times the lighting would be really bad. You'd shoot entire thing, do the rough cut, and then you'd realize there's a sound of a cricket in the entire video. And by now it's 6:30 and the light is dull, and you have to reshoot it in the morning so that before the editors and your bosses are ready, you can again have a nice, pretty looking package. So, and I wish there are times we could just tell the world that, listen, this is take 5, 6, 7 that I've done and not my first take. So, but then I think the end product makes up for it, and a platform where we can constantly innovate and work on different stories. And it's received so well, so kind comments we get on social media platforms. So it makes up sometimes for the frustration.
And if I could just come in here for 1 second, Tridip, I think
Ishadrita.
This is, I mean, the fact that, we are also very heavily involved in the post-production of what we are doing, right? It's not like we are just shooting and we are coming back and that's it, someone else is handling everything else. You come back, you find your story, you have to get internet, you have to send your stuff, you have to physically sit and do the edit. So it's literally like a 24-hour day, right? Like you're sometimes leaving at 8 in the morning and then you're going to sleep at 1, 2 in the night, and then the next day again you're waking up at 6. So this is something that I have noticed that, say, TV channels don't have to do, so they are just spending their day running after people. They send the footage and they're done. But we are actually involved in each aspect of our story, like from pre-production to actual shoot and then even the post-production. And I think that reflects in our stories, that shows in our stories that, a lot of thought has been put into that. And yeah, as Smitha was saying, that at the time it seems frustrating, but when the final product comes out and you actually see that it stands out from, the clutter that the legacy media is putting out, it is really satisfying.
I just like to add on to that, Tridip, something she told about the post-production. I think sometimes it's very important that the reporter herself does the post-production because, one, like you said, we understand the language, we understand the mood, and you might have seen 10 people reaction shots in the Kanimuri campaign, but I would know exactly whether they were overjoyed, whether it was just acting, whether there was genuine kindness. So when we ourselves are involved in the editing process where we put out, these are the shots that will work well, that will have an appeal with the public, it actually ends up giving a story that's very true to its value. It's not guesswork. Every single shot is thought out, placed. So many times we actually plan shots that way. Even if it's an ad sound with someone, like in the Kanimari video, she's saying, oh, this cotton cloth is very nice. It was to show how she appreciated every tiny gifts. And in these small ways, I think we're trying to show the reader also the little experiences that we have, more than the superficial layer of the story itself.
Okay. To our viewers, I'd also like to see that you may have seen some social media cards or Instagram and Facebook that says that our election coverage will cost us something about 16.5 to 17 lakhs. So when you see that figure, it seems like a lot of money, but I want to tell you that it costs so much because when we are telling these stories, you are only seeing 4 of us. Now, it's not just 4 of us who is involved in this story. The 4 of us, we may have gone out on the field to shoot, to report, but behind every story, there will be an executive editor, there will be an editor-in-chief, there will be a copy editor, there will be a video editor who will edit the video in our office in Noida or Bombay. And there will be Hindi versions of those stories that will be done. There will be other people who will be involved in logistics. There will be drivers, and there will be expenses when we go to a place for our accommodation, local travel, and everything. So, there are about 6-7 different heads, 6-7 different entities in which the money goes. So that's why when you see that cost, that a story will cost about say 1.5 lakh and the whole campaign will cost about 17 lakh, that's where that money is used. Every single rupee that you contribute towards the Quint goes into telling a story that is authentic, that is real, that brings the real picture, that brings the true picture. Now I would like to talk about a story that I have done from Assam, and it's a story that I'm particularly very proud of because the Quint also takes, we put in a lot of effort in follow-ups, and this is a story that I followed up after 5 years, and what happened is during 2016, I had gone to Assam and I had gone to Majuli, which happens to be one of the largest river islands in the world. And there I saw a foundation stone which said that a bridge will be constructed here, which will connect Majuli to the southern bank of Brahmaputra. Cut to 2021, 5 years later, 2 bridges were announced. One would be the longest bridge in India, and the second one was the Majuli bridge, which was the work was supposed to happen and start in 2016. So it was announced that the work will finally start in 2021. So I visited the same location, the same foundation stone. The foundation stone was there as it is now, a little old and dilapidated, but no work had begun by then. So it was important for us to revisit the story to say, what has been happening over the last 5 years. An election promise that was made in 2016, in 2021 also, it was still an election promise, and only a small, a small ceremony was done to show that work has begun. So this was a very important story for me to tell. And I would like my colleague Vidhu to play a small clip of that story. And it was a very difficult story because how I decided to tell this story is that I could have gone straight to Majuli and done the story from there. But I wanted a sort of a double narrative for this story. So there are 2 journeys that I did. Once I crossed the Brahmaputra on a bus, over the Bogeyville Bridge, to show that how important bridges are for the voters of Assam. And then when I reached Majuli, I crossed the river again. I crossed the Brahmaputra again, but this time I took a massive ferry, So when I took the bridge, it took me hardly 10 minutes to cross the river. And the ferry ride was almost 2 hours long. So it was important it was visually that way I could show and very easily depict how important bridges are for the people of Assam, and also how time and again during elections, politicians have come and made promises to them that bridges would be constructed. But in reality, how many bridges have been constructed? You can Google that, you can visit Assam, you can see it, or better still, you can see my story and get a sense of it. So I'll ask Vidhu to play the story.
Bridges on the river Brahmaputra has always been an emotive issue for the people of Assam.
ফেৰী সেৱাতকৈ দলঙৰ সেৱাটো উৎকৃষ্ট, সেইকাৰণে মাজুলীবাসী ৰাইজে দলং সেৱাটো বিচাৰিছে।
টাইম ইজ গড, টাইমটো সেভ হোৱাৰ কাৰণে অপুৰন্ত লাভ হৈছে। দলংখন এতিয়া যদি আজি যদি আমি ভোটৰ কাৰণে দলং এখন পাইছো বুলি হ'ব, সেইটো আমাৰ কাৰণে বুৰ্বক হ'ব।
And political parties haven't shied away from playing the bridge politics.
बोगीबील ब्रिज का काम पूरा करवाया भाजपा की सरकार ने किया।
To clearly understand what exactly is this bridge politics, we need to talk to people, and we'll be talking to them not once but twice. First in a bus over the Bogeyville Bridge, and then I will take this massive ferry from Majuli to Nemati Ghat.
Okay, on a lighter note, if you see most of my videos on the field, you will see I normally do my videos and I am in my shades in those videos because it's a problem I normally have when I'm reporting during daylight. I find it very difficult, to report in the harsh sun. So I like to do my reporting with my shades on, and I don't think that has ever affected, the editorial content of my videos ever. So that was something as a quick aside, you guys.
And guys, the real problem is when you're shooting your P2Cs in the sun and there's sweat all over your face and your face is shining and you're like always dabbing.
It always works in your favor because in bright sunlight, your face just looks flawless, only that you're dripping with sweat. So your face just looks like you have beautiful makeup on, but it's actually just the hot sun.
So now we are talking about some beauty tips and fashion tips, which is also part of ground reportage. Few things are important. Okay, now there's a question from Smitha that has come on Facebook. Smitha, I'll take this question. Smitha, can you talk about the idea behind the un-tiffining video and the interesting things you came across while following stories in Coimbatore? So first, Smitha, why don't you talk about Coimbatore and then talk a bit about the un-tiffining.
I couldn't hear you about the Coimbatore part. I'm sorry.
Yeah. About Coimbatore, they are asking, the viewers are asking, and the interesting things you came across while following stories in Coimbatore. So talk about Coimbatore first, then talk about the un-tiffining videos. We'll also give the audience a snippet of the un-tiffining videos.
Sure. So yeah, after Tirupur, that is meeting Kanimuri, is when we went to Coimbatore. Now Coimbatore is a manufacturing hub. It's a very important space which has so many industries there, so many MSMEs, and this place has actually faced a lot of losses. Now, this loss is not due to the pandemic alone. It's from the floods, cyclone, then there's a Sterlite copper plant which was shut down. So there were too many woes that people were facing here. And again, Coimbatore is in the spotlight. Kamal Hassan is contesting from there. We have very important SP Velumani, we have very important AIDK ministers contesting from there. So it's a very key area, and some of the most populated constituencies, especially Muslim-dominated constituencies, are also there. So it's very important. And again, there's a lot of harmonious living in this district. So the person they choose next as a leader is very instrumental in deciding the development in the place. So starting with MSMEs, I've heard about how the small scale industries were facing losses, but what I went and saw to myself was very shocking. First of all, the idea of small scale industry was literally tiny. There were maybe the size of a bed, there was the size of their shop, and someone who had 10 employees until 6 months ago, right now is operating it with his own son, that's all. And there were people who broke down. There were times I couldn't complete a shoot by a certain time because people were genuinely upset that this time journalists or other people had not even come and spoken to them. Politicians had not visited them even once during campaigning. And that was absolutely shocking. And let me remind you that whether it is the manufacturing hub or the MSMEs, every single political party, including the national parties, BJP and Congress, have been visiting these places and promising incentives. And on the ground, there was just shocking, huge losses. Another very interesting story I came across, which I definitely have to mention, is I went to this place called Karumbukadai, which is the most populated constituency in Coimbatore, and it's completely Muslim dominated. And they are flourishing in terms of business. Everyone's doing well. Everyone's pretty all right in terms of financially. But what was shocking was when I went to this girls' school, they told that there was no government school in this extremely populated constituency, and and there was no hospital. There's no clinic. There's no garbage dump yard. It's all dumped on the road. And this is a very normal constituency. And on that note, I really think we need to focus on stories like this so that the respective MLAs, so when we were called the MLAs to ask why haven't you just attended to something as simple as putting up a garbage bin there, or ensuring that the students, girls have education because there's a high dropout rate. This is a story that when I Googled, I couldn't find on Karumbukadai, and that was shocking indeed. And then obviously the minister was held accountable, and he did give a response. In fact, he went and met the constituency later. But I think it's very important to talk about stories like that. And on that note, I'd also like to mention Pollachi, which is right next to Coimbatore, which is a coir industry hub. This coir industry is one of the main contributors to the GDP in the state, and it's very, very influential in that way. But I found a very shocking story, in fact. When I went to Pollachi, it's beautiful. There were coconut trees. I was so excited I could finally take off my mask. And the weather was wonderful. Once you got in, the temperature dropped. And there was this beautiful brown, it was not greenery except for coconut trees. So I was quite intrigued. The moment I took off the mask, 20 minutes in, I was having very bad breathlessness. And the villagers there said they actually were waiting for me to sense it myself. And apparently the coir industry has a byproduct called husk, which flies, and that's caused a lot of pollution of the groundwater, the air, soil. Nothing grows there except for coconut trees, which have been growing for decades together. And this story, by the way, when they narrated to me, they said they were not sure if we'll actually carry the story. Why? Because the coir industry is largely owned by people from the DMK and AIDMK parties, and they're very influential. And even when I went to get a statement from them, they were very harsh about it. So when the story came out, it was received wonderfully by the readers. I think it's one of the stories that did very well because it talked about a story that was unheard of. And I think that's what spaces like the Quint are constantly trying to do, go beyond the basic narrative.
Yeah. So can you quickly, walk us through about the thought behind the whole un-tiffining series, so that we can quickly give our audience a quick snippet of the un-tiffining.
You told about how Delhi journalists are camping in Kolkata and Assam and the whole language barrier. I think we all know how election time, all Delhi journalists will come down and have a plate of dosa and sambar. It's sambar. If you can't say it, don't eat it in that place. And they try to dissect elections through that, and half the things are lost in translation because the correspondent is constantly trying to make sense of the local references and trying to communicate to the other person who's anyway not going to get it. But I think food and politics is very, very essential to bring together. And that's when we thought of this idea of un-tiffining. It's very similar to unboxing a particular person. Unboxing is again now done to death idea.
What kind of effort goes into un-tiffining, Smitha?
First involves convincing my mother and my grandmother to cook all those dishes, and then recook them the next day because the lighting or the sound would have failed in the first day. Also, except for the first un-tiffining, the next two un-tiffining videos I shot while I was in quarantine in a space. So there's a lot of issues in terms of lighting, and you have to sit in front of that wonderful sumptuous plate and not eat for 2-3 hours till you're done shooting. But I think the highlight of the un-tiffining series is the scripting, because it gave the reporter opportunity to be cynical about someone, be very honest about how the situation is, be sarcastic about it, be funny about it. And I think it's been received very well. And I think it's a very sharp commentary on who these people are. Some things otherwise we can't really write it in an analysis piece. And I think that's what got a lot of resonance with people as well. Again, putting out a Ella, which is a banana leaf, and talking to people about it. I think the whole idea of un-tiffining with Tamil items, especially when it came to Kamal Hassan, we did a mix match with a lot of urban items like Maggie to draw a lot of references to his own personality. And it's not just about the food in these stories. It's very important that you actually make a very sane, right, rational comparison, and you inform people. So at the end of the video, they actually have got something from it, and it's not just faff. And that's why we're surprised how we got very positive.
Yeah. It has worked wonderfully well, Smitha. The whole un-tiffining. My only problem is that I was waiting for a non-vegetarian un-tiffining, which never happened in this election.
We did have fish curry. We did have
nice
one.
I think I missed that story. Yeah. So I think we should show our audience a small snippet of un-tiffining, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Can you play that video, please?
This is a tiffin box, and today we're un-tiffining one of the key players in Tamil Nadu elections, known as the leader in waiting, M.K. Stalin. Muthuvel Karunanidhi Stalin is the second son of Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam Supremo M. Karunanidhi. In this election, he is the DMK's chief ministerial candidate. And like back in the day of his father versus Jayalalitha, this year too, his arch rival remains All India Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam.
So that was un-tiffining for you guys. This was an un-tiffining she did on Stalin. There's another one on Kamal Hassan that you guys should watch. That's very interesting. Even though the elections are over, there's no harm in watching that video. It's pretty interesting because Kamal Hassan's political career is going to continue for a very long time, I feel now. Ishadrita, there's a question for you. It's from Pratiti Dhang, and Pratiti is asking, I have seen the Nandigram coverage by Ishadrita ma'am, and I would like to know more about her experience there and how she reached out to the families of people who were killed in the 2007 violence. So first part of this question you have already answered. How difficult was it for you to reach out to the families and ask them to open up on camera?
Well, the first thing that I would mention here is that I think if you watch the video, I think we have covered 4 families. Whereas, in fact, the number of families I approached, there are 14 families in total. And I think I spoke to at least 10 families and only 4 of them we could get on camera. So that kind of shows how difficult it was to get them to open up. Also, one more thing, the first thing really was that a lot of them have still not gotten over the incident. I don't think you ever can get over the death of a family member. So for me as a reporter to kind of go there and get them to remember those days, which evidently made them really sad, was a task, okay, which is why some of the people that we went to, they just said, we don't want to talk about it anymore. It just brings back too many bad memories and I don't want to talk about it. Other people that we went to, they were just so disillusioned with the whole political process that they just did not want to comment on the politics. They did not want to comment on the elections because their stance was that no matter who comes, no matter what happens, our lives are not going to change. Our lives are going to be the same. So it was really difficult to get them to talk about their past, get them to talk about what has happened to them since then, and especially talk about what they want now, because they have been in a place where for a long time they have been denied everything that they were promised. So they don't want to, I mean, when they see us, they said that, there have been so many journalists who have come to us. There have been so many people, who walk around Nandigram, who have come here, in so many times, but nothing has happened to us. So getting over that cynicism that they had, like kind of negotiating with that cynicism and telling them that, I'm not here to kind of do TMC BJP. I'm just here to understand what your problems are. That was quite challenging. And especially in Nandigram in general, the voters are really silent. It is in general very difficult to get people to talk. Anybody who has covered Nandigram will tell you that. And especially with the Mata families, that problem was double or triple.
Ishadrita, one important question. We have seen the kind of violence that's been happening around the whole Bengal elections. So how big is it a risk for reporters? So far I don't think we haven't heard any incident where a journalist has been attacked, but is it risky for the journalists as well? Because right now, members of political parties, they are being targeted.
So what happens in such situations is that, it can go from okay to bad in literally 5 seconds. So maybe you're in a village and you're talking to a bunch of people. You're talking about a particular issue, and then that discussion within the next 3 minutes just goes from point A to point Z really fast, and it escalates. And then, suddenly you have a crowd of 20 people around you. They're all very agitated. And you don't know what step they might take next. Thankfully, it has never happened with me where they have reached the point of violence. But during my reportage, there has been many places where I know if I let this continue for the next 2 minutes, it will come to a point where people will come to blows. So I think also when you're a journalist, and especially when you're in these remote areas and you're talking about issues which are very sensitive to the people, it is important from our end also. I mean, there are some things we can't control, okay? Like, it is completely beyond our control. But the things which we can control is just to be a little sensitive in terms of the questions you're asking, how you are asking them, what is the kind of attitude that you are putting forth in front of the people you're talking. So getting them to kind of, even people that you don't probably personally agree with, getting them to talk to you and talk to you in a manner where they can trust you and not get angry with you is a task. And especially in a scenario like Bengal where everything is so politically charged, that becomes an even greater task.
Also, when you go out for reporting, are there reporters of other channels and other media organizations who may have been your friends, and you guys may have worked together? You make sure that the word goes out, spreads out that, guys, I'm going there. If I'll end up in a situation, I will reach out to you for help. But I have seen generally, even though you may be from rival organizations and all, but a journalist normally in the field stands up for another journalist. It happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
That is true. That is something that, I mean, for our viewers, I think it's very important to know that, ideologically, two channels might not be together, but when you are a reporter on the ground, you really are just a reporter on the ground. There's no channel or anything behind you. And reporters on the ground are really helpful to each other. Even if you're rival channels, even if you're like, you don't agree with each other, you're always going to be there. And especially for people like us, right? We are completely traveling alone. So there have been times when I have, say, if I'm in Bakura and I'm going to this particular place, and I know that there's a reporter who is in Bakura town who's also in the adjoining area. So I tell them that, I'm going to this place, and there aren't many people around. And I mean, if you don't hear from me in the next 1.5, 2 hours, then call, or this is my driver's number, you call him and you figure out that I am okay. And the same message kind of goes to my husband, and I tell everybody that, inquire after 2 hours. If I'm not okay, then you might have to call people.
Reporting from Bengal during election is at par with conflict zone reporting, I'm saying. It is conflict zone reporting. It's so difficult. Anyway, so we had a long webinar. We are almost at the end of it. I'm again, requesting our viewers, our audience members who are part of this webinar, who will maybe watch it later, is that there is a link which will be there in the description of this video, which is there in the chat box. You click that link, it takes you to another page, which is our support the Quint page. On that page, you can make a donation. You can help our journalism. You can support our reporters. With your funds, we can tell more such stories. And I will let Smitha have the last word and appeal to the audience and tell them why they should be supporting us. And then, Smitha, you can also end this webinar. I think we had a long webinar today. And Ishadrita must be extremely cold sitting outside for an hour now.
I don't think she will be regretting that. I think she's enjoying clearly. And I'm sure you all liked hearing what we all were talking about what goes behind all of this. It would be great if you could tell us who you would like us to un-tiffin next, or where you think Ishadrita should travel to talk to people to understand their woes. And to even start doing that, we definitely need your support. And to give you a little perspective, as you can see, the Quint has given platform to constantly do stories that are often missed out by mainstream media, to follow up stories. I think that's most important, to remember what Anita said once, to fact check what somebody has said, to present you truth and only truth, and giving you a very objective understanding. And let's face it, we're all bored of just seeing these 1.5 minute cut videos on TV. And that's why digital platform is booming. And we at the Quint are trying our best to push ourselves, to try out different storytelling techniques. And for that, we definitely need your support. So check out that link in the chat box, become a member, shower us with your likes, comments, give us feedback, write to us. If you think that there is another food item we could have added in Kamal Hassan's Pandi, tell us about it, so that probably the next time we will add it in our script. It's you that helps us grow every single day. So thank you so much for being a part of this webinar. I hope you had fun, because we did. So thank you.